Hi, warm greetings. Uh, Vanakkam and welcome to today's session. I'm Abinaya Kannan, a practicing speech language pathologist from Chennai, India. Now, I firmly believe that communication is for all and the learning process should be really fun. So, this led me to be a Hannon More Than Words certified therapist, and that enabled me to engage and empower primary caregivers of children with communication difficulties. I'm currently a consultant to special school in Chennai. I'm also a passionate storyteller, and I've come to recognize the power of narratives in fostering meaningful communication and enhancing communication skills through working with the children, students across age range, from 2 years, toddlers to young adults, and they have all enjoyed a good story. So let me share my slide. Well, there. So that led me to today's topic, storytelling, an instrument for enhancing communication skills. This is the definition given by National Storytelling Network. Storytelling is the interactive art of using words and actions to reveal the elements and images of a story while encouraging the listener's imagination. To my understanding, storytelling is an inhibition breaker. So, what I've seen in parents, fellow SLPs, students, um, educators, all of them, as soon as they start learning storytelling, there are a lot of inhibitions that are broken. They start emoting more, they start expressing more. And the biggest thing that comes over with becoming a storyteller is being able to get to the level of the listener, whichever level that is, and being able to respond and create stories accordingly. And that is the power of storytelling. Now, to become a good storyteller, we have to understand what storytelling is made up of. What are its key components? Now, storytelling uses language. It is all about the active imagination, creativity. It's using vocalizations, gestures, physical movements, expressions, and it is definitely interactive. It's always a two-way process, and it can combine a lot of art forms. Now, these are the generic components. Now, I'd like to just briefly explain about each of these components, uh, giving it a relative experience to all how, as an SLP, as a communication therapist, do I work with these components? How can we incorporate it while we think about communication goals? So, for the first component, I'll start with interactive, which is two-way process. Storytelling is always about that. It's between a storyteller and one or more listeners. Now, even in a conversation, like during certain academic activities, routine activities, we may go on and on with whatever we are saying, be it describing, commenting, instructing. But in storytelling, we have to pause. We have to pause and observe our listeners as the response of the listener influences the telling of the story. Example of this in our everyday activity, one of our everyday situation would be if we have to talk about an holiday experience within our workplace. So to different people, we talk about it differently. We explain it differently. And this is based on how keen are they on listening to it and knowing about our experience. We identify this by noticing their verbal responses, body language, their expressions. Now, this method of keenly watching out for responses while telling stories to our children, how is it going to help us? Well, we will identify the points where there are increased interest, improved motivation, things that are really interesting them, grabbing, engaging them, and points where there are disengagements, where they don't really like it. Now, all of this comes only with keen observation and right process. So that definitely helps in tweaking the way we tell the story to that particular child or student, and this will definitely create a positive impact on the interaction. Next component, which is using language. So we know a language, we use a language. It should be as simple as that, right? But it is not, because for our children, one of the possible difficulties might be in language development, encompassing vocabulary, understanding of phrases and sentences, building sentence structures, and other grammatical aspects. Now, we also have to think about the AAC users who might be using sign languages, communication boards, other low tech and high tech devices. So, when we think of language as a component during storytelling, we have to think of how to modify the way we use our language to suit our children's abilities and requirements. Next is using vocalization, gestures, physical movements, and expression. So this plays such a huge part of social interaction, and it's facilitated by appropriate understanding and usage of these components. Um, any one of these, any one of these aspects could be a communication skill or a goal for our children, and we will want to work on it. So, what better way than storytelling, which has this as a key component to work with them through this? Next is imagination, creativity. I don't think this component requires much explanation because just saying the very first line of a story opens our mind to numerous possible plots and characters. So a story can end in 3 lines, or the same story can end in few pages. This component of storytelling has no bounds, and it is linguistically and cognitively challenging. So we decide the level of challenge that we have to provide our children based on their level, our understanding of their level. And finally, combined with art forms. The beauty of storytelling is that it can assimilate songs, dance moves, puppetry, drawing, painting, poetry, and other forms of any other form of art to make it as interesting as it can be made to the listener. Now, many of our children love a good melody, rhythm, some dance moves, some drawing, coloring, molding with clays. So, here are ways that we can tap into their interest while working on their communication skills through storytelling. Now, I'm going to leave you with these sums of thoughts about all of these modifications, and I'll follow it up later with ideas again in the talk. Yes. So, the possible areas to work on through storytelling. Broadly, we can work on their emotional development, language development, moral and social development, problem solving and reasoning skills, and a lot of creative thinking. Now, specific to communication skills, we have to understand what are their abilities and difficulties. And to get an idea on all the communication difficulties that individuals with autism might have, please check out Ms. Anuradha Deshpande's talk in the Autism Connect page. It's there in one of their videos. And she's given a very good idea about all possible areas that they might have difficulty. Now, once we know our children's communication abilities, difficulties, their level, and we have certain goals. And when I say communication goal, it can range from skills like establishing joint attention, helping them imitate an action, pointing to communicate, up to following conversational rules, understanding figurative language and body languages, everything that lies in the continuum of communication development. We could work on any such communication based skill through storytelling. So, when should we start telling them stories? Because stories are in sentences. Should we wait till they can really understand sentences? No. We can start telling stories as early as they are just fetuses in the mother's womb. Studies have proven that fetuses in the later stage of pregnancy can hear voices. So, whichever stage, age, level the child is at, now is a good time. Let's start today. There's one more thing parents often ask us. Like, my child is not listening to me. They're not looking at me. They're not turning to my voice yet. So, me continuously going on with telling a story, is it going to help? Yes, it's going to help. They, their listening is something that we are not really probably observant about yet. We don't know how they are really perceiving or listening. So why not start doing this? Take a book in your hand or just start telling a story with the objects that you have in your hand. So I hope some of you know the term parallel talk, which is just talking about what you're doing. So if you are somebody who's reading a story in your book, just talk about the story, just describe the pages, very like you're really having fun. And that itself is enough to grab our children's attention. Let's start doing that, and let's start today. Now, this leads us to the next question. How should we tell these stories? What are some preparations we need to do based on our child's requirement and preferences? What are some skills that we possess that can be useful in telling a story more interestingly? And finally, all of these questions, all of these questions fall under the umbrella of this main question: how can we equip ourselves to be a storyteller that our children would love to listen to and interact with? Or let me answer these in parts with examples of modification that we can make and how to incorporate some communication goals in few of these steps. So the first thing would be choose the mode of storytelling. Few of the examples are here, which is using a book, using props, um, acting out in role play, and using art forms. Let me briefly touch upon each of this topic. The biggest challenge is that each of these topic can be one whole session. That's how much each has. So I'm just going to briefly tell you what are some things that we can use, some ideas to begin with. Now, when I say book, there's a spectrum of book that we can choose from. There's so much. Let me start with something very basic called the bath book. Now, just like how we toss some squeaky rubber toys into our children's bath, and they love playing with it while they're in the water because they love water play as well. There are books that are now made that we can throw in the water, and our children can flip it, squeeze it, play with it, and there. So while we are giving them a bath, we can tell a story. Now, books like sensory books, which has a lot of textures, colors, sparkles, whatever that interests our children. So we can pick few of those books, or books with movable parts, like manipulable. Like once we open, they pop out. We open, there's something hiding inside. Now these books have been very useful for me to tell stories with some repetitive questions. For example, those pop-out books, right? So before I open them, I start with, oh, who is hiding? Then I open, there's somebody popping. So every time it's just that one question. Now, if my goal is for my child to understand the who question, very easy with this kind of storytelling. Now, the same book can be used for a lot of other language goals, but this one popped in my mind. And uh, next next book would be just big books with like large pictures. I have one here. Yeah, there are there are lines here. Of course, there are some small one-liners, but the pictures are so descriptive. The pictures themselves say the story, and it makes it easy on us to describe it and give our children the complete visual image. So these books, and then books with one lines, two lines, three lines, and then build up to like pages with less pictures. Uh, each at each level, each age, there is a storybook that you can use. I'm reading a storybook currently, just that I call it a novel, which is a non-fiction. Fancy names, but they are all stories. So we can pick books like that. Now, how do we introduce books for children? Some children who don't like books, who we think that they don't like to even touch books yet. So there are one or two ways that can help. Primarily, be a good model. So in front of them, when they are around you, without calling them to come take the book with you, sit with you, just open that book, have a couple of books around the house, pick them out and keep reading them in front of them, wherever they are. It's fine. Do it for 2, 3 weeks. They are going to feel like, oh, the adults in the house are constantly using this, touching this. Why don't I try? Maybe that will give them some motivation. Or if they are already just paddling with the book, they're exploring with the book, then of course you can start engaging them through just talking about one picture at a time and then slowly building up into stories. And one more point is that when you want to choose a book for your child, don't go ahead and pick a book and come sit with them first. Try leaving 4 or 5 books on the table in front of them and give them, if they're ready to make choices already, give it to them. Let them choose the book that they want to read with you. And that really gives them more power and probably will engage them better. So that is one way to start off with reading a book. There are more ideas on how to work with a book, how to flip those pages, and how to add some content into the existing books. So there are a lot of creative ways we can work with books. And the next one is using props. Now, props is a world. Uh, the first thing that comes to my mind when I say props is puppets. I really love using them. Finger puppets, sock puppets, all that. And it could be even a vessel in your house filled with water. Or why I'm saying that is, okay, so my child likes to play with water a lot. And we've already established this game of probably putting something inside, picking them out. Let me fill a vessel with water, add some squeaky fish toys inside or just some toys, and then have that tea coffee filter that we have at the house, the netted ones. So we use them and then we start telling a story saying, oh, we are catching fishes today. And then you build a story from there. So every time they pick a fish, you add a phrase to it, you add a sentence to it. And the end, you say, oh, all fish is caught. Let's go home and cook. Now, yes, that's an activity. And yes, that's a story. And now once that's built, we can add more to it. There are a lot more props. If there's a shampoo bottle in front of me, I can build a story with that. Now, a shampoo bottle and a toy, I add it on the toy's face. Like, oh, ouch, it hurts. We take them to the doctor, and then you build a story from there. Now, because if we don't have the time to uh, probably make some puppets, draw something relevant to a book that we are using, there's an idea like, say, for this book, there's auntie here. I can just take a color Xerox of this page and a few more pages, like these pigs. I'm not sure if it's really visible, but yeah, there's a cycle and a girl. So take the color Xeroxes, cut them out, stick them on ice cream sticks, and use them as props when you tell the story. So you can use the books, or while you use the books, you can leave the props to them, and they can pick up whenever you're talking about those characters. So it can get more exciting like that. And then using art forms. This is one of my favorites because the second, every time that I think of, oh, art form and stories, I remember this one called jingle that I remember that I learned as a child from my elders, right? So this is in Tamil. Um, நீல நீல சாய வெளுத்து போச்சு டும் 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 ராஜா வேஷம் களைஞ்சு போச்சு டும் 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 டும். So just that jingle on its own is very exciting. And because of this jingle, I actually remember the story. And this was played by a group of our cousins, like 3 to 12 years old. And as soon as we want to, we hear the story from our elders, we huddle up and start singing this and dancing around with this. So the 3-year-old, I'm not sure if we really understood this. As a 3-year-old, we understood the story, but we got that jingle. Now, this jingle is about a melody, it's about a rhythm, it's about the music. So we can add a lot of that to even what we feel like mundane or monotonous stories. Just 2 lines, make music out of it. And a few of my children, I use my ukulele and guitar to introduce because they really love the music. So I start with that. And few sessions, I even start with just singing, hey, hey, whatever the name of the child. Say, hey, hey, Achintya. Hey, 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 Achintya. Hey, hey, Achintya. Let's read a story. So, and that's it. Like, it's just something I want to tell them, but I start singing it to them, and that's exciting. So, and during the stories, you can have, say, for a line like this, saying the lady is walking very slowly. You can add a small rattler, some small noise maker saying, ch, 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 ch. You can give a rhythm like that. And all the noise makers that we use for them as toddlers can bring them all back in and just creatively use it in places where there's a need for attention, where there's a need to highlight something. And at one point, they'll probably start picking up and using it along with us, which adds a lot of fun. And art includes music, some dance moves, of course, um, puppetry falls under props and art, and then oh, drawing and coloring. I love doing that. Now, what I do for some of our children is take an A4 sheet or in the whiteboard. As I tell the story, I start drawing. Very bad at it, but that is one skill I'm still working on and trying. We can always try. So I start drawing. Oh, that's the big lion. Just draw the outline of the lion. It's going so fast. And then I move the marker very quickly and really fast. And then it's going to catch the small rat, poor rat. And then I draw a very, very tiny thing. And then at the end of it, there's a board with story. Now, when I do it in a paper, if they really enjoy coloring or painting, at the end of the story, I'll give them the colors and the paint for them to do it on the things that I've drawn. And while they do it, I kind of ask them some questions. I again engage with them because it's again time that gives me more time to come interact with them. And that's been interesting for a few kids. So then acting out and role playing. This is a huge area, and we could use this for toddlers till teenagers and adults. Everybody likes a role play. Everybody likes acting things. It's about the dramatics of it, right? So very simple toddler act out could be, say, in this book, this girl is riding a cycle, right? So all I could do is after finishing the story or while I start reading the story, like, oh, so you are, or you are the girl, Anjali, pick up that cycle. Let's go on a ride. And then as the child rides the bike, if they really like it, while they go, there are some obstacles in the story, like there are pigs coming in, there's a frog coming in. Now, what we do is use those props or animals and we bring them in real. So this is an entire acting out of the story. And they, primarily, they might just be enjoying the riding the bicycle, but slowly, whenever this animal comes in front, you add, oh, stop, let's take a step back, or they're going to jump on you. All of that, whatever helps build the story. We can do all that. And that's acting out. Role play, it can start from just going to the doctor and sick, the police is catching the thief, simple ones, to like really big Shakespearean dramas. Um, all of these are a lot of ways that we can start storytelling with. But what I would recommend, prerequisite, the real important thing to remember is that what's our child's existing interest? Does any one of these activities excite them? Do they prefer something the most? And we start there. So for one child who really enjoys music, I might start with the guitar to just get them to listen to stories and then play with me. And then probably I remove the guitar a bit and add props to it. But if I had started with the props, maybe they wouldn't have been interested. Now, for another child who doesn't like any noise, who doesn't like any of these sounds, then I might start with the props. I might start with drawing and coloring. And then I might go add some music to it slowly so that they start enjoying that as well. So I personally prefer to do a combination of books, props, and musical instruments. So now tap on your child's interest and be sure to practice anything that you want to show or model to your children prior. Now, of course, storytelling is about spontaneity a lot, but as a beginner storyteller or even a very experienced storyteller, sometimes when they have to introduce a new story, they actually sit and practice for a while, just for a while. And that practice is so important so that our children are not confused when we are trying to model something, but we end up doing a lot more than that. So let's stick to a bit of a script with spontaneous small additions that our children might like. So over time, we might not need that practice with our skill set, but just we just have to plan for the goals, the stories, or the targets accordingly. Now, the next one in the preparation that we need to do is choosing the type or genre of the story. I'm not going to dwell a lot in this. I feel like all of you will already have an idea about, with just the name of it, you'll be able to understand what it is. So let me quickly run you guys through this. Now, personal stories. This could be about a vacation that you all took last month, or a birthday celebration at home, or just a shopping mall visit or a fun city visit. All of that could be personal stories. And we could make personal story albums for visual aid. So we can click pictures of during the event in a good sequence, and then print them out, and then add them in an existing album and just flip them through. Now, another way to make a personal story book, the existing book that we think that it's old for our children, right? Probably these cardboard books with A, B, C, D, all the alphabets, and we feel like, or just stories that are too kiddish that we think, oh, our children they've grown past it. Now we can pick those books and stick all these pictures on them, and we make our own book. Now the book is still useful, and we're not throwing it away. So what I'm trying to say is, store all the books. We could always use them in different ways. So those are some personal stories, and then fictional stories. There are a lot, right? So there is so much folklore, and stories that I go to a lot are from Ramayana, Mahabharata, some great stories from Bible. So these books really engage our children because there are a lot of animal-based characters and everything, and there are a lot of folklores and all the moral stories. Anything that involves animals, creative characters, some fantasy, some magic. All of these are fictional stories. And then comes, oh, film retellings. This is something that I recently have found that children are more excited about because how much ever we try to get them away from screens, at some point or the other they are exposed to it. So I try to make something productive out of it by leveraging on this film retelling aspect of storytelling. If they watch a movie like say Finding Nemo, now uh, I'll make the props relevant to the picture, this movie that they have watched, and then I kind of use them to tell the story. Or if I feel like I want to engage them right now, I want to tell them a new story. And when I pick up all the things they're not ready, but they've watched on the screen, I let them watch it just once and then mute it and then play it beside me and then bring the props in one by one, slowly engage them and pull the screen away to bring the story in. So that is something that can be done with some cartoons that they're very interested in and videos that they're interested in. Generally, if they're the ones who are ready to watch movies, some animated movies, then once they watch it, you both can do an entire role play, acting out with it in the class, and that'll be exciting at home. That'll be exciting. And then special interest characters. So a few of our children might really love one or two characters like Spider-Man or Batman, and they or Peppa Pig, or they might be very interested in just cars. Now you can build hundreds of car stories. You can use cars props, car stickers. You can use like a basic small video clip with car, and you yourself can become a car by sticking like four chart reels on yourself and whatever interests our children a lot. If there is some character, we can start there and use that to build more stories. Once we start using that character, get their attention, we can add just one more character, and make it a whole novel by ourselves. And then comes social stories. This is a huge segment. Social story is has been very useful, and research has proven that strongly. Now, social story helps us to teach our children something as simple as brushing properly to something as complex as understanding some serious emotions like a funeral or things like that. And social stories really help. So we can build those social stories based on the child's requirement at that point. So to quote an example for one of the children I was working with, uh, anytime the child touches a bicycle, he takes the bicycle and goes to the supermarket right away. So what we did is he knew his way around, so it was unsafe. So what we did is we click pictures and then we added 2, 3 segments where when they pick and go alone, there is sometimes they might fall down, there is sometimes they might go missing, they might miss the way. We added pictures like that, and we told that story slowly, saying what is safe and what's unsafe with that book, and actually that behavior slowly started to change. Now there are lot of other ways that we can make some social stories for our children. So these are broadly the kind of stories that we can pick for our children based on their interest. And I think yes. So now that we are prepared with the materials needed and the kind of stories we want to tell, let's dwell a bit more on what changes should we make to our communication that can help our children to attend to us and respond during storytelling. Before I could, before I go into these communication-based goals, there is one prerequisite to all of this. Again, that one prerequisite is that create a very pleasant and a happy environment. The premise of storytelling is that it needs to be fun. The storytelling in itself is fun. Now, the second we start thinking of incorporating goals, we shouldn't take the fun out of it. So it's not about our children, what are they going to learn in this session? It's about what am I going to do, make it fun and create in this session. So if that's the goal, naturally there is a lot of scope for learning and our children might pick up a lot. So the goal in our head should be, this should be fun. This should be really fun. And to make it fun for our children, we should really be having fun with the story. So as a storyteller, when we tell that story, at any given point, if we feel like Oh, okay, let me go. Oh, okay. It just means that we are not having fun. Let's have fun, and that's the prerequisite. After that, what are some modifications that we could make as part of our communication? Starting with some speech and body movement ideas. Eye level. Now, if your child is thrown on the floor and they are sitting like this, fully lying down, go to that level, lie down with them. Instead of calling them, come sit in this table, it's story time, take the story to them and just go in that position and make sure they are able to see your face at any given point. I'm not saying pushing them forcefully, I'm saying be in a position so that they can see your face. Now, this will give a lot of scope for them to look at your expressions, look at that excitement, look at everything that you're showing on your face. So at any point, if they're sitting on a chair, be on their level. They're lying on a bed, be on their level. So this modification has to be made for any kind of communication activity, not just storytelling. And then the next one is body movements. This can be a lot of things. So for few children who might have a preference, who might really like being tickled, cuddled, hugged, or patted, you can use a lot of those during the activities, during telling a particular story. You can incorporate them. So, for example, if there is a story where it's a story about a frog and it goes around the forest and everything, so we know that frog jumps or hops. So, and I know that this particular child, my child, really likes hopping or jumping, that kind of body movement. And I incorporate that quickly and be like, oh, the frog jumps to the forest. And then, yes, and then he can jump to the forest. And then the next thing, the frog. And then I wait, probably my child jumps and yes, jumps to the river. So you can tell an entire 10-line story with them just jumping from one point to the other. And just like that, any kind of physical movement that you think they like, and either together or them separately, you can incorporate that. These are important because it adds interest. So this is all about including their interest. So pulling their interest into it. So we are doing such movements. Next, facial expressions. So important. And I don't think I need to highlight why it's important, but I think I need to highlight that one thing that we have to consciously do is leave any inhibitions that we have and be ready to emote. Let's exaggerate. Let's put it on our faces so that our children know, oh, so this is sad and that is happy and this is irritated and that's frustrated. Let them see it on our faces. Let's be completely free with them and do it so that they are able to gauge it and probably use it comfortably, identify it. So we know we might have certain goals to understand facial expression, pick it up during a conversation. That can be very well incorporated during such storytelling sessions. And then comes gestures. When I say gestures, I would also like to add a very major part, but I'm not able to talk about it here, which is the AAC. And there is a lot of AAC users out there, uh, sign languages, simple gestures, boards, the tablets, and the talking switches, using a lot. There's a whole world out there of AACs. Now, when we think of these modifications, we have to think of how to bring that in the storytelling play. How should we model? So right now, if I'm talking about just verbal language, well, I can model using all these props. Now there's another aspect coming into it, which is the AAC, and we need to be proficient in modeling along with the AAC when we tell them the story. Aided language input is so important. Aided language model is important. For that, we need to be able to use the AAC during storytelling. Um, Yes. So, and additionally, regularly gestures, simple gestures that are very functional that we want in our everyday environment could be, oh, it's behind me, right? So I don't say anything, but I say, oh, the book just showed, oh, behind. Then I teach the gesture along in the story, right? Um, and then voice changes, so important, and it might really, few children just really love it. It could be as simple as making a very low voice, bass voice, like, hey, you come here right now. Or you go all squeaky, hey, don't do this to me. Something like that. These are just voice changes for characters. We can work around our voice for characters. And something else we can change the voice for is probably when we say the door is slowly. So I made a small change as much as we could, that the door is closing with a very nice voice modulation. So it's not just for characters that we have to add some voice changes. We could add it for non-living things, describing actions. We could use for all that. And other than that, for certain aspects like the quiver in the voice, for our children to detect, you needn't necessarily be crying to understand that they are sad. Probably the child is very scared and they're ready to cry. Then the voice might be like, no, 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 mommy, I, I don't want to go. And then there's a slight quiver. When we make such changes, it's easier for them to understand the functional aspects of these voice changes. And then intonation changes. It could be the different patterns like, oh, you did it? That's good. Or you did it? That's bad. Now, and then things like when you ask a question, how does the intonation change? When you make a statement, how does it change? When you're excited, how does it change? Add all that in the story. And when we have a communication goal, sometimes to say to work on that intonation, then it might be really, it might come in really handy. And then body language. There are so many functional body languages, right? And they vary from culture to culture. So a few things like, shrugging or rolling your eyes. These are some things that we have to understand without the verbal backing to it. So add these into your stories. For example, the mother asked Tom, "Where is your toy?" And he, "I don't know." That's that. Now that shrugging is helping them understand. Oh, this means I don't know. Or this means I don't care much. So add such body languages that are functional to your story, which will help them not just as goals, but to really understand when conversations happen. These body languages are to be observed, and they might start picking up on those as well. And then adequate pauses. Uh, it's very basic, but it's very important. Now, when I'm speaking, if I'm going to keep going on and on and on without any pause anywhere, even now I'm going on with a good intonation for you to understand. But if it's going to be monotonous with no break, not enough pauses, it's going to be hard for them to connect the dots. So give right pauses in the right spaces. And when we talk about language, maybe I'll highlight that a little bit more. I think yes, that's about speech and movement. Okay. Next is modifications in language. Now, there's something called one level up. Now, this is a key idea that I learned from my teacher and a senior SLP. It was always to remember to provide model or input with one or two words more than what our children are using regularly to communicate. For example, now in this book, it's just a huge picture and it has just one phrase. Now, for a child who is probably just using one word or two words to express right now, I can stick to that level or a level more, one level more, which is just saying, "Oh, it's so hot. They can't play. It's so hot." Now, for a child who is probably speaking, beginning to do phrases or three or four words and sentences, I can say, "Oh, there is a scorching hot sun up in the sky. So hot, the boy is tired. Oh no, I can't seem to play. I don't think they can play. Do you think they can?" Now, the book can have just one phrase, one sentence, paragraphs. We can tell the story how we want to tell it. And just make sure that you stick to the pictures and the pictures are relevant. But otherwise, tweak the story, tweak the language according to the children that we're working with, their level. And the next one is more telling, less asking. If you notice, first and foremost, when I just did this, it'll be mostly some comments, some description, and talking about rather than asking a lot of questions. So it's a storytelling and not asking for a reason. So please use questions occasionally. Maybe when we want them to relate to it, relate to something that they have experienced, or after you've adequately modeled the expected answer as part of the story. So asking questions continuously might disengage them. And next one is preparing targets based on goals. So for this same story that I just used, that book that I used, now I told the story differently. Now I'm going to make a little different because right now probably my goal is to work on prepositions for this child. So I could just say, oh, he's tired. He's sitting on the floor. He's sitting on the floor. And then I can add, oh, hey, Sarah came with a bike. She came with a bike. He sat on the bike and they went far, far away. Now, we can add any language target to any story. It just needs some preparation. While we do that, always we have to remember to always provide good and sufficient models and then provide opportunities for them to use it in the story. Storytelling is one of the best ways to provide repetitive models, and repetition will really help root the ideas and improve understanding. This way, we could add the select language goal, which could be any of parts of speech or grammatical structures, building up from single words to sentences, understanding and asking questions. We can use any of that. Make sure, one thing that we have to remember to make sure is to highlight these targets while we are telling the story and focus on one or two language goals at a time with one story, because they are anyway getting a lot of models other than these aspects, right? So let's be specific when we choose language goals in storytelling. And the next one is adding relatable ideas. So one of the best ways to improve understanding of certain words, events, or behaviors is by drawing parallel to your life whenever possible while telling a story. Now, an example could be that, like you're running them through a book that has a birthday celebration, and it could be as simple as, "Oh, you remember your birthday was last week, or your friend's birthday? Here, let me pull up a picture. There, you're wearing same mask. You're cutting the same kind of cake." Just one idea to pull inside. So once or twice in the story, doing this will help our children to think, connect, and sometimes generalize whatever they are learning to more situations or contexts. And then providing opportunities. So once we know we have modeled the story and repeated the targets, we can provide opportunities for our children to try. This could be giving spaces for them to complete the sentences or fill in the words in a sentence, giving them choices, waiting for them to imitate the action, gesture or sound, or act like we are confused with what's happening there, etc. So if they are not able to respond in that opportunity, no problem at all. Please respond enthusiastically, provide that model, and continue the story. This is a very crucial point. If we push them too much or test their knowledge, we might lose the interest and attention we get from them, if we've gotten from them so far. So always remember to keep it fun. They're definitely learning, and appreciate and ask follow-up questions. This is important for any of us. Come on. So right now, after this session, I'm going to go ask my friends or who watch to say, "Oh, so how was this? How did you like it?" I'm going to ask for feedback. So make sure that even when you tell the story, when you finish it, appreciate them because they were good listeners. Appreciate them because they were good participants. Even if they looked at you once during the session, like, "Oh, you looked at me. Remember, you liked the story. Thank you so much." And then if they're able to respond, ask them if they liked it or not, if they like the characters, do they want any other characters. Try to engage them and add their ideas. Like I said in the beginning about the component, it is about active imagination and creativity. It is so important to use our children's creativity as well, wherever we can. And there'll be a lot of opportunities to do that. So I think that brings us to the summary slide. Now, storytelling is an effective way to improve several communication skills. It depends on how much we observe, understand, and modify our stories based on our children's abilities and requirements. This can be done through thorough preparation, modification in the way we speak, the way we use the language, the kind of models we provide, and the opportunities we give our children. So, storytelling is an ocean. Yes. So, storytelling is an ocean, and what we covered today is a drop in it because it's all about creativity and imagination, and all of us have that capacity. So let's utilize it to become storytellers with a goal to support our children's communication, behavioral, and emotional development. Let's aim to make them the fun and happy storytellers. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And Autism Connect, thank you for this amazing opportunity. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.